Now, if you're sitting down to a smashed avo breakfast, you might be interested to know that 3 new avocado varieties are landing on Australian shores. A major mango grower has signed a deal to bring the new avos over from New Zealand.
Now, it's common for there to be different varieties of fresh produce. Just think about how many types of apples there are in the supermarket. But what about when fresh produce is altered to suit the needs of farmers or consumers? Let's speak now to Professor Robert Henry, who's a Professor of Innovation in Agriculture at the University of Queensland. Professor Robert Henry, great to have you on Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Good morning.
What can you tell us about these new avocado varieties? How are they different to the ones we usually find on the supermarket shelves?
Well, we mainly have the variety Hass, which is dominant worldwide, and these new varieties will be slightly larger fruit, more green in colour, not as dark, and with a smoother skin. So they'll represent, hopefully, a more abundant alternative to the major variety that we've had to date.
Now, that it is common for there to be different varieties of fresh fruit and vegetables, but are some of them being altered to better suit farmers and consumers, and how is that playing out?
Yes, well, with all of our food crops, we have to continually improve them genetically to meet, as you've suggested, the needs of both the producer and the consumer. And that's only accelerating with the challenges of adapting to climate change and the emerging pests and diseases that threaten always existing varieties, particularly ones where we're growing predominantly one variety like we have been with avocados.
What's that process called, and what does it involve? How does it all work?
Well, it's plant breeding or selection, and what we're normally doing in fruit and vegetables is selecting progeny from crosses between existing varieties, or sometimes selecting new varieties that just arise by chance in the field. But what we're now seeing is new technology that allows us to use DNA analysis, genome sequencing, to characterise these plants and to deliberately select the ones that will have the characteristics that the consumer or the producer wants. This is very important in fruit trees, where it might take us 20 years to find out what the fruit's like. We need to be able to really assess that at the seedling stage if we're going to select better varieties and bring them to production quickly.
How does this process change the structure of the fruit and vegetable? Does it change things like the nutritional value, or perhaps how environmentally sustainable it is to grow?
Yes, well, the objectives of breeding is really to address those issues, to produce varieties that are actually more nutritious or can be produced more sustainably. The consumer is always looking for better taste, better convenience. They want to consider the sustainability of their food choices. They want to be ethical. They don't want fruit that requires the use of unethical production processes. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration in bringing forward new varieties. But they also need to address the needs of the producer for efficient and sustainable production.
Are there any downsides to this plant breeding or plant moderation?
Well, I really think that there's more downsides to not doing it, because if we don't bring forward new varieties, the old ones will become susceptible. I think the COVID pandemic has shown the community what happens when a new disease arises, and this is what we have with our crops. We're seeing it at the moment with bananas, where we have a new strain of fungus that's attacking the Cavendish variety that's been grown very widely worldwide, and we really need more diversity in our foods to give us the security and protection against these threats.
Could it make fresh fruit and vegetables cheaper as well? Because everyone knows they're extremely expensive at the moment.
Oh, well, fundamental to coming up with new varieties is producing ones that can be produced more efficiently and sustainably, so that those prices are maintained. The cost pressure on production is always there. We need to try and find ways of producing these things more efficiently.
And you see this happening more and more in the future, as you mentioned, with our changing climate and as we see the impacts more and more of climate change.
Yes, that's really a big driver. We need to adapt agriculture to new climates, and a big part of that is having the plant varieties that that will perform in those new environments or in the different places where we're likely to be growing our fruit.
Professor Robert Henry, fascinating to have you on Weekend Breakfast. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.